I'm Whitney.
I'm Mindy.
And I'm Deb.
We're three best friends who love nerdy things.
Well, some people think we're nerdy, but we think we're pretty awesome.
This is Our Nerdiest Thing.
Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today, we are starting our discussion of Crescent City Book 2, House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. We're discussing the prologue and part 1, The Chasm, chapters 1 through 24. Quick reminder that this podcast is spoiler heavy across all of Sarah J. Maas's series, except for Crescent City 3, House of Flame and Shadow. We will not be discussing the happenings of that book until we talk about that book in a few weeks.
So, weird thing, in high school, my nickname was the Chasm.
Was it?
No.
I would have believed you.
Yes, we're sex positive. They call her the Chasm.
They call me the
called me the Pit.
Oh, man.
It's better
Good
than
times.
being like the
Good
ninth
times.
dimension of hell.
Right.
Quick shout out once again to reviews from a bookworm. We used that summary for Crescent City Book 1, and we're using it again for Crescent City 2. Thank you so much. This super detailed, amazing summary reviews from a bookworm. Please make sure and go check that out if you haven't already. Before we get into the happenings of this book, Deb, will you please share our nerdiest cocktail?
Every time you say the happenings, I picture us on like Soul Train going down the center of the, giving our little like rolling bullet fingers. You know?
The happenings.
The happenings. Okay, tonight's drink is named the Mirthroot Mojito, and it's themed after Rune Dannon's extracurricular activities.
Ooh.
I know, right? This drink pairs well with ignoring your betrothed, partying with your bros, and sit on my face tropes, which are Whitney's favorite.
I mean, they really are.
And it may cause you to know 3 things with absolute certainty.
Noise.
I know 3 things happened after I read that chapter. This chapter. By the way, I made bookmarks one time that said, take me back to chapter 3. Because, I mean, that literally is probably the best chapter in the entire book. And it's like 2 pages long.
The most well-known one, too.
I know,
yeah.
right?
It
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite delicious. It has strawberries and mint and rum. All kinds of good stuff. I don't know why I'm whispering so much.
You do an ASMR.
It's ASMRing through my digestive system right now. It's your turn.
I thought you were going to say more. I don't know why.
Nope.
Thank you so much for that, Deb.
You're welcome.
Mindy, will you please share our nerdiest vocabulary?
Of course I will. So I have 2 short ones that I would just want to start out with. A couple of etymologies that spoke to my curiosity. One was the name of the Autumn King. His name is Einar. And that is in Scandinavian or Old Norse. That's the origin, and it means lone warrior or bold warrior. So it just made me wonder, what secrets does the Autumn King have? Like
That feels too nice for him.
He,
maybe
he
he's
puts
not-
in people's butts without
I was
asking.
going to
That's
say,
the
maybe he's
secret.
not just a dick, but he's a warrior dick. I don't
Nice.
know.
What would be in a warrior dick?
In a warrior dick?
Or like, is it pierced?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I feel like it has to have a Jacob's ladder if it's a warrior dick.
the
something.
Autumn King, I don't think would, though.
I don't know. I think he's a little nasty in bed.
I think that's true, but I think he would think that was like beneath him.
To pierce it?
Mm-hmm. Especially because Rune has so many piercings. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. I think he would be like, I'm too good for that.
ASMR
I feel like
my
he would
cooter.
bedazzle his dick.
What'd you say?
I said, I feel like he would bedazzle his dick.
The Autumn King?
Yeah.
He'd paste some leaves on it or something.
That is a hot take.
Do you think that bedazzling gun hurts?
I'm sure it does if it's on your dick.
What else, Mindy?
This next one is actually more interesting to me. So the boat that takes Emil to Lunathion is called the Bodegraven. Mm-hmm. And it translates loosely to silent grave or messenger grave.
Ooh.
So that's a little spooky, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that was a weird one, but kind of cool.
It's a fun tidbit.
Yes. So now I want to talk about the word Midgard.
Oh, okay.
And there's a lot to talk about, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be a short like etymology, and it's just not. I went down a major rabbit hole.
Hold on to your butts, everybody.
Hold on to your butts. So the etymology of the word Midgard, it's an old Germanic name for the mortal realm, which literally means middle enclosure. And the Anglo-Saxon equivalent, which is mentioned several times in the epic poem Beowulf, is Midgard, as in Midgard worm.
Interesting.
Oh, damn.
Interesting.
And then in Norse mythology, this mortal realm was literally in the middle of the realm of the gods, which includes the Vanir, and the realm of the dead, which was considered hell. Side note, there were 2 realms of the gods with 2 different types, the Vanir and the Aesir. So I don't know if that's going to come into play or not. Interesting. So then I looked a little bit about like the geography of Midgard in Norse mythology. It's said to be created with the corpse of a primordial giant, considered by many to be the first living creature of the universe. So it's created from this dead giant, which seems just weird. His flesh was the land, his hair the trees, his bones the mountains, his teeth the cliffs, and his blood became the oceans. And central to it all is his skull, the skull of the giant. And I thought maybe perhaps one of the mountains. Could it be Ramiel? I don't know. But this skull is held up by 4 dwarves. And their names are Nordri, Sudri, Austri, and Vestri.
And grumpy.
I know, right? They're considered the 4 points of the compass. So, I don't know. Austri sounds eerily similar to Asteri.
Yeah.
And then to create light in the form of the stars and the sun and the moons, the gods went to another realm to steal sparkles from Surtur's sword.
Give me your sparkles.
give me all your sparkles. They found Edward instead.
This is the sparkle of the killer, Bella.
These are the sparkles of Midgard. So Surtur was a fire giant, and his sword is described as being a very bright sword that shines with sun, S-U-N, not S-O-N, of the gods of the slain. So it's also called the Twilight Sword. I didn't do that on purpose, actually. But like I thought, Twilight Dusk. Anyone?
Yeah.
Or it's called the Sword of Doom.
Dun, dun, dun.
I don't know. I'm getting
just about to do that.
I'm just getting Star Sword vibes.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, with the power of the sun or whatever. Yeah.
And then Midgard is actually completely surrounded by a creature called the Jormungandr, or the Midgard serpent, which encloses the entire land by it basically grips its own tail. So it's chomping on its own tail. That's an Ouroboros.
Yeah, it is. I was just about to say.
Oh.
And I also feel like there's got to be a tie to the Midgard worm here somehow.
Surely, yeah.
So lore says that when the serpent releases its tail, the end of the world will begin, which is also known as Ragnarok, the Norse apocalypse. Jormungandr was born from the god Loki. I'm probably saying it wrong too. Anyway,
Jorgen.
So the big worm was born from the god Loki, who had 2 other children, Fenrir, the giant wolf, and Hel, the queen of the dead.
Interesting.
So all this is starting to sort of meld together, right?
Connections.
And then it actually has ties to Thor as well. So according to Norse mythology, Thor is considered the protector of Midgard. And I've already talked about how Hunt gives major Thor vibes.
Yes.
So Thor is considered the god of thunder, lightning, and storms. He is also associated with protection and fertility. When he first goes to Midgard, he's looking for a cauldron big enough to brew beer for all the gods, which is hilarious. But then I'm like, cauldron. He's looking for a cauldron.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Thor meets his death when he kills the Midgard serpent, but gets poisoned by the serpent's venom. So he kills it, but it bit him before he killed it. And so then he dies from the venom. But I just love this connection to Midgard because Hunt, who I think we've already thought maybe he was Thor's descendant, and Thor was the lightning and thunder god, just like Thor. So that would mean that Hunt is the protector of Midgard. Which maybe explains why he wanted to help the humans in the war.
Yeah.
And I also think
That
he
makes
may
sense.
have ties to the Thunderbirds somehow because the name Thor actually translates to thunder.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He is the god of
Interesting.
thunder.
Yeah. So,
Thunder.
Lots of little ties in there. I don't know. That's why I went down the rabbit hole. I kept finding things. I was like, oh,
what about this? What about this? Yeah. Well, thank you. I held on to my butt, and I was very excited for everything I learned.
My butt fell off.
Mindy.
It's okay. I have some to spare.
Well, everybody needs to hold on to their butts a little bit longer because it's time for our nerdy and dirty recap, guys, which means Whitney is going to talk for a long time.
If this is your first season listening, normally we do 10 facts in 60 seconds and we draw from a hat, but there's just way too much shit.
That.
Normally it's because we're reading smaller sections. So we'll go back to that when we start
Mindy
book 3.
and Deb were overwhelmed. And Whitney said, I'll do it. And we said, yes, please.
I really enjoy doing this.
If you're a new listener, Whitney has made PowerPoints for us before for our book club nights, explaining family lineages from Blood and Ash and theories.
I really enjoy doing stuff like this.
You're amazing, just the way you are.
So we're just going to jump right in. There is a lot going on in this first section of House of Sky and Breath. We meet new characters, we get a lot of information, and we get chapters from different point of views compared to book 1. So instead of pretty much only getting Bryce and Hunt's point of views, we're going to get a lot more Rune and Ethan and Therian in this book 2, and that will continue on in book 3 once we get there. So I am actually not going to go in chronological order in terms of like when things happen in the book through my recap. I kind of reorganized all the information in a way that I think makes a little bit more sense and hopefully will help everybody with all the big important pieces of information.
It does jump around quite a bit from person to person.
Very much so.
If that's a problem for you and you've not read book 3 yet, like just take some time. Take some time reading your chapters, people. That's why we're only doing like 3 chapters at a time.
Right. So first and foremost, we need to remember all throughout Crescent City 1, House of Earth and Blood, there is a war happening in the background of that book. It is mentioned several times, but it kind of takes a backseat to what's going on with Bryce and Hunt and the search for the Luna's Horn and Danica and all that stuff. In this second book, that war takes a much more important role and more of like front row seat in this story, so to speak. So we need a quick refresher. We already know from Hunt there was a rebellion 200 years ago that failed miserably and ended up putting Hunt in slavery to the Archangels. That war is still going on in Pangera, mostly between humans and the Asteri. Very few Vanir are involved, probably because life is a little bit better for them higher up on the social food chain, but there are some Vanir who want a better world for everyone and are trying to help the humans defeat the Asteri. There is fighting, kidnappings, murder, imprisonment, torture, and death camps happening every single day, just not in Crescent City. This is happening in Pangera, but it is happening. The threat and the risk of death, if you get involved with this rebellion, is very, very real for these characters. And that threat is not limited to Hunt or the fallen rebel angels. Anyone and everyone is under the threat of death if you cross the Asteri. It does not matter who you are. And we saw that at the end of book 1 when Rigelus, I still don't know how to pronounce that name.
I say Rigelus.
That's what I say.
Well, that wasn't either of the options I gave. So when he calls Bryce and tells her basically like lay low or I'm going to kill you. So just remember all of that because that sets the stage for this book too.
Can you go through that again?
Nope. You can press rewind. All right, so now I'm going to talk about Cormac. Cormac is Rune's cousin from Avalon, which is a Fae island where Rune's mom is from. So Rune and Cormac have a lot of bad blood that is discussed in this book and was also mentioned in book 1. Rune and Cormac battled, like literally, like physically battled in a cave on Avalon because they both wanted to claim the Star Sword, which was like hidden in one of those caves. Rune obviously won that because he has the Star Sword, but Cormac fought him, stabbed Declan, and hates them as far as they all know. That situation is so nasty, the cave incident is Rune's ordeal before he made the drop. Cormac shows up at the beginning of book 2 and drops the bomb to everybody that he is betrothed to Bryce, which nobody, including Bryce, knew about.
He's only her cousin. That's not weird.
Their two crappy dads, Cormac and Bryce's dads, got together and did, not Randall dad, but Autumn King dad. They got together and did the whole, patriarchal arranged marriage thing. And Cormac is meeting his bride. But we find out that Cormac has a few other ulterior motives. He is actually a secret rebel agent for the rebel organization organization Ophion. He is known as Agent Silverbow. He is in Crescent City on a mission that I'll talk about in a minute. He's using his very real engagement to Bryce as a cover story. He's also there on an unofficial mission to find a missing 13-year-old boy that we kind of meet in the prologue, Emil. He is the younger brother of Sophie, who is also a rebel agent and the girlfriend of Cormac. In the prologue, we see Sophie is rescuing her brother and some other children from a death camp, and Cormac is helping them escape. Sophie gets separated from the group, and they all get away, but she is taken into custody by the Hind, who used to work for Sandriel when Hunt was enslaved way back when. So, Sophie is being hunted by the Hind for 2 reasons. One, Sophie supposedly has some super secret, super powerful information that may or may not be about the Asteri that she says could change the whole war. 2, Sophie is a Thunderbird, which means she is able to absorb different types of power, like First Light, and she can use that power as if it originated from her. So we see her do this in the prologue when she essentially consumes the light from the street lamps and then throws it out at the Dreadwolves chasing her and electrocutes and kills them. Thunderbirds,
badass, by
I
the
know,
way.
right? Thunderbirds are supposed to be extinct, but here's Sophie. So, they're not. The Asteri had them hunted down and killed a long time ago because they were a threat. So Sophie is a double whammy to the Asteri, both because of the fact that she is a Thunderbird and whatever information she says that she has. So, fun fact, her brother Emil is a Thunderbird as well. We see him use his power to take out some Asteri boats in the prologue. The last we see of Sophie in the prologue, the Hind chained her to some cement blocks or iron blocks and dropped her in the ocean. When Sophie does not make it to the escape boat that has Cormac and Emil, her brother, Emil gets the hell out of there because he does not trust the Ophion rebel leaders. They basically want to use him as a weapon, even though he's a child. So he runs away to Crescent City. It seems his sister told him about some kind of secret rendezvous place. So Cormac is in Crescent City trying to find Emil, both to fulfill a promise to his love, Sophie, but also to find him before Ophion does, so that he can save Emil from a future of being used by anybody, including the rebels. And it turns out Cormac is not the only one looking for these siblings. The River Queen has sent her spy master Therion, who we love from book 1, to confirm that Sophie is actually dead. So he searches the ocean, basically, and finds the blocks and the chains, but the chains have been unlocked and there is no body. So Therion is trying to find out what happened to this Sophie and whether or not she survived. He finds out about her brother Emil, and now Therion is looking for Emil as well. Therion's investigating leads him to finding emails between Sophie and dun dun dun.
You scared me.
Frickin' Danica. Somehow, Danica and Sophie knew each other and had some kind of mutual interest that they discussed, but nobody really knows what that connection is or why they were talking. So,
I talk a lot later about how much Danica lies.
These 2 siblings, Emil and Sophie, they are a huge part of book 2 because the whole story is them as the foundation. Everyone is trying to figure out what the F is going on with these 2 people, right? Cormac, Therion, Ethan, who was recruited by Therion. And side note, Ethan got kicked out of the Wolf Den for smack-talking Sabine and defending Bryce. So that's why he's here. That's just a little tidbit for you.
I love him.
I know, I do too. And Bryce, Hunt, and Rune are looking for the siblings because of this Danica connection. I mentioned earlier, Cormac has an official assignment from the rebels in Crescent City. Sophie had been in communication with Agent Daybright, who is a rebel operative who's really a double agent, super close to the Asteri, but unknown who this person is. Since Sophie's missing, Ophion needs a new operative to communicate with Agent Daybright. So Cormac is there to recruit Rune. Cormac knows that Rune can mind speak. And while Cormac has not shared that information with Ophion, he thinks that Rune would be perfect for this operation because if he can mind speak through their crystal comm, which is like, Crescent City walkie-talkie, it would be easier to hide that they were talking to each other because you're not literally speaking, you're using your mind and it's easier to hide that. So Rune agrees and starts communicating with Agent Daybright in this weird like mind bridge, alternate dimension kind of place that's only in their minds. And and they don't actually see each other. They just see humanoid figures disguised by fire for Agent Daybright and darkness and stars for Rune. So fun times there. Oh, and also Rune is engaged in an arranged marriage to Hypaxia, but I'm going to talk more about that next week. So just don't worry about that right now. All right. Bryce and Hunt are in this story. Even though I haven't talked about them yet.
We know they haven't fucked yet, that's for sure.
But their story so far in this part 1 is really Bryce and Hunt getting caught up with all that information that I just told you. Like, that's pretty much what their story is at this point. So they're together, but they're not together really officially. They want to get to know each other and just live life before they have sex, which is stupid. They're working, they're going out together, they're just like living life like normal people before Cormac shows up and like drops all that bomb of information on them. So in the meantime, Bryce and Hunt get visits from 2 different princes of hell, Apollyon and our good friend Adis, who both basically say war is coming, get a handle on your powers and be ready for it because you're not ready for it yet. Bryce is still upset. She's finding out more about Danica that Danica had been keeping from her, secrets and lies. So not just working with Sophie and maybe Ophion as well, but she finds out from Fury that Danica was a freaking bloodhound, so she could smell your bloodline and scent out what you are and who you're related to. So that's a cool party trick.
And who you're mated to, right?
And yeah, mates as well. There's a new governor of Crescent City, the Archangel Celestina, who seems really great, but she'll become more important in the next section of the story. So I'm going to talk about her more next week too. Because of the changes in governors, there's a change in the Triari as well. Freaking Pollux the Hammer and Baxian the Hellhound have moved from Sandriel's old crew to Crescent City, and now Hunt has to deal with them. But I'm going to talk more about them next week too. Just know that they're there.
Who are you talking about?
Cormac. Cormac, Sophie, and Emil. Like, that's really the story. So that's a lot of information. It's the setup for the rest of the book. It's everybody looking for these 2 siblings and these 2 Thunderbirds.
That's
right?
a really good way to put it, because the beginning part of this book, so much is happening that you do lose focus on like what everyone's trying to do.
Yes. And by the time you get to the end of this part 1, everybody is trying to find Sophie/Emil.
Yeah.
Right. And most everybody has lost hope that Sophie is possibly alive, except for really Cormac, because he loves her.
Yeah.
Which, I feel bad for.
Well, there's also the part where her chains are undone under the water. So I think there's hope that she escapes somehow.
There is hope, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So that is the recap. It was a lot. I hope everybody held on to their butts. But now we can go into more detail in the nitty gritty. Let's talk about our favorite moments. Somebody else talk.
Go ahead, Min.
2 favorite moments. One is, so I just got a chuckle out of when Pollux called Naomi a hag, because not because he called her a hag, but because it reminded me of Charleston and that guy.
It's a hag.
Yeah. So now all I picture Pollux as is this like Matrix wannabe who says hag.
Just if anyone that's listening that didn't listen last season, we went to South Carolina. We went to Charleston for Less Than the Low Country. We thought we would do a ghost tour, which I feel like we need to redo when we go in March of next year.
1,000%.
Yeah, but we got this gentleman that was in a black trench coat. He either wanted to be Blade or Keanu Reeves from The Matrix. I couldn't really tell.
I think it was both.
He was wearing sunglasses at night. I can tell you that much. So he was talking about boo hags, and he had a Charleston accent, right? And the woman's like, and we swear that they had actors to act surprised and to ask questions, because this one woman was such an overactor. Every time he said something, she'd be like,
like she gasped way too much.
And then she's like, "What's a boo hag?" And he's like, hag.
I mean, he like screamed it. I almost peed my pants laughing so hard. Oh my gosh.
I had went around the corner and peed already. Otherwise, I would. We had pre-gamed and we were having a really good time. So
it was fun.
Less Than the Low Country is March of next year. If you want to come hang out with us,
we have
Check
a
it
good
out.
time.
What was your actual favorite moment?
My actual favorite moment
hag
is actually not any like more deep, but is when Bryce and Rune come home to Ethan and Therion, and they're petting the cat, which is actually Aedes.
Yeah.
And then it's revealed that it's not a cat, and they jump up and get scared.
It's a freaking
and,
prince of hell.
Yeah. They have like girly screams. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, he's like, your cat's weird.
Mine is also the same, Mindy. I wrote down, can we talk about how great, and I put Adis. So again, we're going into one of these, we don't know how to pronounce this shit.
Yeah, I know.
So can we talk about how great Adis being a white cat is? And I love that Ethan was like snuggling him and petting him, and then just like, bam, there's a Prince of Hell standing right next to you. And there's one thing I've always thought. So, I mean, we said this is spoiler heavy. At the end of this book, we do have a mass multiverse thing happen, right? So I've always wondered if the white cats in the library in the book Tower of Dawn were actually the Hell Princes.
Yeah.
It's too specific.
Wondered about that too.
I'd forgotten about that.
Because there are a lot of theories now that book 3 has come out that Throne of Glass takes place before everything. So, in that ACOTAR and Crescent City are on the same timeline. So I do wonder about that, because it's weird that there's white cats everywhere in Tower of Dawn. And if you do skip that book, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, don't skip Tower of Dawn. It's good.
Read Throne of Grass. Throne of Grass. Throne of Glass.
Well, my favorite moment was actually different than that. I just really loved the sweet moment right before Rune gets kidnapped by the Reapers. When Bryce is inviting him to come home to her mom's and spend like holidays with them, and Rune is just so like touched by that and is like, really, you want me to come home with you? I mean, they've had such a rough relationship the last several years, which we talked about when we talked about book 1, but I just really liked how happy he was to get an invite to her.
He doesn't really have anyone except for Declan and Flynn,
right? Well, and he talks to, I think it's in this book as opposed to book 1, but Rune talks about how he was like really close with Bryce's mom and they got along really well and they were like friendly with each other, and he misses her just like he missed Bryce, right? It's not just Bryce, it's her chosen family that and her actual family that he misses.
It's like you break up with someone and you like their family more than you like them.
I thought it was really sweet, and I really loved that. And I love that Rune is comfortable to show his emotions to his sister. Like, he doesn't feel the need to pretend to be like super strong and I don't care about this.
There's a reason we all want to fuck him.
But I really loved that a lot.
Well, since your favorite was so sweet, why don't you bring it down a notch and tell us about your least favorite?
My least favorite moment is really Ethan being kicked out of the wolf den, and really how much he's struggling with that without having a pack. I did not remember reading this before. I didn't remember how lonely that makes him feel and how lost and purposeless he feels. I didn't remember that, and it just made me really feel bad for him. I realized also, kind of along those same lines, during that, it was a funny moment, but when he was telling Hunt, you know, it took my brother 5 years to just get her to agree to go out on a date. Like, good luck, bro. You're only 5 months in. I thought it must be really hard for him to watch Bryce fall so hard and so fast for Hunt when she didn't with his brother.
There is something, though, that was pointed out in the notes from Reviews by a Bookworm, that Ethan said that Connor thought he was Bryce's mate, and that mates mean something different from wolves than they do angels. And so I'm like, could he have also been?
I actually wrote down at that part, I think Bryce was Connor's mate, but Connor wasn't hers.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's especially the way fate works in these stories,
and how attached he was to her, and how he waited for her, and all of that. Connor, you left quite a mark for 50 pages, man.
I know. He's the Sam Cortland
he is.
of this book.
Sam
series.
got a whole book, though. We did Connor bad.
He could still get a book. Sam's Assassin's Blade didn't come out until after the third book of Throne of Glass.
That's
didn't
true.
It? So
yeah, that's true.
We could get some prequel.
I'm
stories.
sure she's got a plan for that with the fourth Crescent City and the 3 other ACOTARs.
So maybe it's one of the 7 contracted books.
Maybe. Yeah. If you could just tell us what one of those is, that would be great.
What about you guys? Your least favorite moments?
Mine was when the Autumn King was basically forcing Bryce to marry Cormac.
Yeah, he sucks.
I think Jessica really says it best when she says, males will always try to control the females who scare them. Marriage and breeding are their go-to methods.
That's one of my favorite quotes.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
It's
like living in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and we see that across all of Sarah J. Maas's series too, right? Like, look at Moore's family and the High Lord of Autumn and the way that he treats his. I mean, it's not just in Crescent City, right? It's a whole thing.
In Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes, it is.
North America, South America, every continent on this planet.
Everywhere.
Yeah. Mine is just really wondering, why again do Bryce and Hunt need to wait to have sex?
I know.
They've been together for 5 months,
Yeah.
and they've been literally through hellish situations
Yeah.
together. So nothing brings you closer than trauma,
Right.
and 5 months of no dick. Like
Yeah.
that, I don't understand. I know that there was a slow burn there, but I think one book of it was plenty.
I think Bryce is scared. Honestly, I think Bryce is scared, and Hunt is shown a lot more being like, I know what it feels like to lose the people that you love, and I don't want that to happen. And I think Bryce feels the same way, and I feel like this is a manifestation of that, of like, I'm afraid we're gonna die and that the Asteri are just gonna come kill us. And
All the more reason for them to go ahead
That's
and
what I
do
was
it.
gonna say.
But
like,
I think she's thinking of it like, if I get even closer to you than I already am, it's just gonna hurt that much more. You know what I mean?
But she's going to die too if he dies. You might as well just
and then
fuck.
she's gonna die with blue labia.
I'm not
Right, exactly.
I'm not saying it makes sense, but I think that's what the thought process is.
Yeah.
But I'm making some assumptions there, so maybe I'm giving her too much benefit of the doubt.
You're also sweeter about sex than I am.
Go get yours, girl.
What's your biggest revelation, Whit?
Well, I had two. The first one is that I don't remember a damn thing from this book.
I thought the same exact thing when I was reading it.
I remember the last chapter, and I'm reading it and like, I don't know what is happening. I don't know who these people are. I really did not remember anything. So that was
That made me feel
shocker
a lot
to me.
better when you said that just now, because I was like, why do I not remember any of
Dude,
that?
I
didn't
did
really
not.
either.
I forgot about
really don't.
Sophie and her brother
Me
all
too.
together.
They're the whole point of this book. I completely forgot about them. But the actual book revelation that I had is that Therion has the same job title as Azrael.
Wait, what?
They're both spy masters.
Really?
Oh.
Yes.
They
that-
can both spy master me.
They could not be more different to me
Yeah.
as characters, as people. And that is so weird to me that they have the same job
Yeah.
in their respective
Well,
kingdoms or whatever.
Never mind.
Hush. What about you guys? Biggest revelations?
I have two as well. The easiest one is that the creatures of hell may not actually be the bad guys. Adis talks about how the Asteri had history written and they wrote their own villain in. So I found that really interesting because Adis keeps saying things like, Bryce, when are you going to come into your power? When are you going to ask us for help?
Yeah.
And it feels like he's trying to conquer something, but then he says shit like that. And I'm like, oh, what if they are written as the bad guys, but they're really not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was
It's-
something for me.
It's the same vibe as From Blood and Ash when Poppy
Right.
finds out, well, here's actually what's going on.
Yeah.
It's like,
Here's
well,
what
people
the
that have been
Atlanteans
taking care of
actually
you the
are.
whole time are the bad.
wait. Yeah, it's like, this is my entire way I see the world. I
Right.
need a minute to sit with this information.
Right.
But-
And then my other one is just that Danica lies a lot. She keeps secrets about the Asteri. She had been emailing Sophie for 6 months. She kept the secret of the synth in book 1. She hides in this book that she has a mate. She hides that she's a bloodhound and consent lineage. I'm like,
Luna's horn.
what does he say on The Wedding Singer? He's like, information that would have been useful yesterday.
And her college papers hidden in the table.
I'm like, you didn't think to tell anyone this?
Yeah.
This is also information that could have, quite frankly, sped up the book, but also Bryce wouldn't have been sad for a year, right?
Yeah.
If you had told her all this shit she knew how to carry your work on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you put the horn in her, you couldn't tell her all this too. Drives me nuts.
I think Danica thought she was invincible though. So she
That
didn't.
And that she
Danica
had it
was
covered.
invincible?
She had it covered.
that she
too.
had it covered. She didn't need. I don't think Danica felt like she needed anybody to help her because she thought she was gonna see it all out.
See, I think almost not the opposite, but I think that she knew that she was playing with fire and that her days were numbered, and she just didn't want anybody else to go down with her.
So, we
I can
read
see
a
that,
lot
too.
of fantasy books. Send an email that has it's going to be delayed send Right.
Yeah.
6 months down the road. Here's all the shit you need to know.
If you're watching this video, that means I'm gone or whatever.
That means I tore myself up and my entire pack.
She could have put that on a flash drive in her jacket.
Exactly. Right. No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
What about your biggest revelations, Mindy?
Mine, I mean, I had a lot as well, but I think the one that I pinpointed was that the Star Sword can kill Reapers, which are that which cannot be killed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, what the fuck there?
What's up with that? What's up with that?
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, I liked that tidbit too.
Talk about a part of the book I completely forgot about.
I had too. Like,
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that whole section about the Reapers and like why they were sent, which we still don't really know why they were sent.
Very questionable.
Yeah.
It's sus, as the kids say.
Definitely sus.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I don't remember anything about this book. I'm like, it's like reading it for the first time.
Well, but
that says a lot coming from you.
I know.
It's also like reading it for the second time because then I'm like, oh my God, I missed that the first time. Like, there's so much you miss.
That is true.
And it is hard to like say, you need to go back and read this like 1,000-page book. But it's
a tough pill to swallow.
But it is so imperative, I think, because you learn so much more that way, because so much I skimmed over that I was like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Now that I'm like, oh God, that makes so much more sense.
Well, it's the same thing with ACOTAR, where you like the first book more after you've read the second and third book.
Yeah,
it's
100%.
It's like there's too much too fast, and so when you first read it, you're like, what? And then
so
later
layered.
it all makes sense.
Yeah. It's hard. You got to peel back those onions.
And people that aren't patient readers don't follow through, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mindy raises her hand.
Well, I would love to hear what your favorite spices scene was.
I'm going to go ahead and assume it's the same for all of us.
Maybe.
All I wrote was, Rune Dannon knew 3 things with certainty.
I wrote, how did he know what he was doing so well that he essentially came to in the middle of it and the fawn was still having the time of her life? The dude's passed out literally with his tongue hanging out and she's just riding on his face. Yeah.
I actually picked a different one.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sure, I'm going to guess, was it the alley scene with Bryce and Hunt? Or was it when she gave him head?
When she gives him head.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's because of the end of that scene where Ethan is like, no, do it louder next time.
That's my favorite quote.
I love that.
Please have sex a little louder. I didn't hear everything that time.
I love that so much. And I love a spicy scene that has good spice, but also makes me genuinely laugh. Not laughing because it's like poorly written, but because it's funny. Like you are able to have wit and humor. I really love that.
But then I
also got to read Helena Hunting.
I know. It's on my list.
I know. It's so good.
I've already given her stuff to read. I'm just kidding.
Like 500 books.
I know.
But I do,
on my list.
I do love too how Hunt's like, I'm going to fuck the shit out of you. And then Ethan's like, that sounds medically unnecessary.
I really enjoy that a lot.
Have you ever been in this, especially like in college, where you're like, if I have to hear them fuck one more time, I'm going to lose my shit. And Faye and werewolves can hear everything.
Okay, I'm going to tell this story. It's not sex, and my husband doesn't listen to these episodes.
Sex.
Because it's not about him.
Oh, Lordy.
Before my husband and I were dating, I was making out with this guy in my dorm room, and my roommate was asleep, or so I thought. And like 45 minutes into it, she got up from her bed and was like, I'm going to the bathroom. When I come back, this is done.
She's like, I gave you 45 minutes to stick it in her and you've not done it yet.
I wanted to die. Oh my gosh, it was so embarrassing. But that's the closest I've ever come to this, and that I never want that to happen again. So.
It is mortifying when something like that happens.
Oh my gosh, it was horrible. So anyway, I might cut that out later.
Blowjobs, huh? Well, see ya.
Well, see you later. How about chapter MVPs? Who did you guys? I'm curious to see who we all picked, because I bet we all picked different people.
I struggled with this one.
Yeah.
I couldn't decide which one I wanted, so I just went with the messenger otters because they're adorable.
That's awesome.
I love that.
They're cute.
There's
like,
a lot
no
of
good reason. I just like them.
There's a lot of really cute, like handmade crocheted plushies going around of the otters.
There's some
They're adorable.
really cute merch with those on them.
Yeah, that's true.
Mine was Baxian. And it is because he beat the shit out of Pollux.
Yeah, I did enjoy that.
Yeah, Pollux was taking a woman behind a bar to rape her, and Baxian literally won't stand up for it. And it sets Baxian up for some great character revelations in this book and the next. I think this scene was really important for you to start to see him as not an enemy.
Yeah, and he straight up says to Hunt a couple of different times, there is more to me than meets the eye. Like, you don't know me. You think you do. You really do not know me. Like, this is a fresh start. We have a new boss. I don't have to be that person anymore to survive.
Right.
So I'm not going to.
Right.
I like Baxian in this section. This the same kind of Rhysand energy and like Ada's energy of like, you're a bad guy, but I don't think I don't think you're a bad guy.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm into it.
I think Dominique Wesson drew a really good Baxian that I like.
I don't know that I've ever paid any attention to any Baxian artwork.
She drew him with like a really beautiful chocolate color skin tone, but it's really hard to draw, to be honest, and get all the highlights and everything. It's really gorgeous.
Don't Google any fan art if you haven't finished all 3 books.
Yeah, don't do it.
Just don't do it.
Thank you. That's a good
word
point.
to the wise. Well, my chapter MVP was actually Cormac. He is kind of a douche. However, he is bringing all the information that we need to know to understand what's going on. That's pretty much all him. And he's also bringing the resources with his connections to Ophion and the opportunity for this whole story and all this character development. So shout out to Cormac. You're kind of a douche, but maybe not the worst. So woo.
Maybe you're also kind of a good guy.
Yeah.
Maybe.
A question mark. How about your favorite secondary characters?
What was yours, Mindy?
Mine was Ethan.
Me too.
Oh,
So I just, poor, sweet, misguided, and clueless Ethan.
I know. Bless his heart.
He's the little puppy that keeps getting in trouble, but it's somehow helpful. The whole cat situation where he's innocently petting a prince of hell. And then when he's playing with Danica's sword, which I totally picture videos where the dad's playing with the kid's lightsaber and falls and hurts himself.
It's like a knight in training. He's like jabbing and stuff, and that's why I put him down, because I love that sword scene so much.
And then he accidentally finds a clue, right?
Can you imagine though? I can picture it. That's why I love that scene so much. Walking in, there's a dude standing there with the sword on your glass coffee table, and he just fucking falls through. Yeah, because no woman's gonna do that. No. And I love she just got this ex-sunball frat boy guy in her house that found a sword, and he's like, I think I'm gonna play with it.
I was practicing. She's like, okay, you did good.
Yeah.
I actually picked 2 people, but neither one of them are Ethan. So I picked our favorite Prince of Hell, Adis, because I just really loved it when he basically pulled Cormac into Bryce's apartment, and he's like, hey, he works with Ophion. I really enjoyed that a lot. I wrote Chaos Monster for Adis when that happened, because that just makes me laugh. So he outs Cormac as Agent Silverbow. And I also chose Agent Daybright as my favorite secondary character because she was helping save Rune when he was being attacked by Reapers, when she's like, something is happening. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why I know, but you need to wake up. Something's going on.
Too.
Yeah, I really appreciated that because we all love our favorite prince.
Yeah, we don't want Rune to get eaten by Reapers.
Because then he can't eat me.
Oh, man. Well, that's my favorite quote from this episode.
Mine was Ethan's quote while they were having sex. Or trying to have sex.
Yeah. What was your favorite quote?
How many do you have, Mindy?
I only have 2.
Oh, okay.
And they're both Bryce. Well, sort of. Bryce says to Jessica, I was given an order by the Asteri to lie low forever. And Jessica says, how terribly boring of you to obey them.
Yeah. I liked that one.
I really love Jessica. She's a complete enigma. I have no idea where that's going, but she's funny. And then the other one was when she says to Cormac, if you're looking for how not to be an asshole, it's shelved between bye loser and get the fuck out.
I had 3, actually. One of them was what you talked about earlier, what Jezebel says, males will always try to control the females who scare them. I really liked that. When Cormac is talking about talking about being a rebel, and Hunt and Rune and everybody are basically like, we could all die for this. And he says, I can think of no better reason to yield my life to make a better world for everybody else, which I really love. And then my number one favorite quote was Bryce smiled sweetly at Cormac. I get that you want to play broody prince, but don't ever fucking interrupt me again. I really enjoyed that a lot.
I did start liking Bryce in this book. I didn't love her as much in the last book. And I think it's because Sarah J. Maas makes you think she's very surface for a long time. So then the reader almost has to start to trust her again and her integrity. And she does that very quickly in this book.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So we probably all have lots of questions.
So
many questions. What questions do you need resolved, guys?
One of my questions is, if she did, how did Sophie get out of the chains when Agent? Well, I guess when Lydia tries to drown her, right?
Yeah.
They just go and the chains have been unlocked, literally. So does someone have her body? Is she alive? What happened with that?
Yeah.
But one thing that we have not talked about is Thunderbirds, which is what Sophie and Emil are supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
In this particular series, I feel like SJM could have flushed out who the hell all of these characters are better. Because I remember when we talked about book 1, I said I got in a group and was like, can someone tell me what these characters are? And it was silence because the books had just come out. And you learn over time, but it takes a little too long, right? Yeah. And I honestly pictured the Thunderbird as the Phoenix in Harry Potter. How did you guys picture it?
That's what I thought of too.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to look up and see what they actually were. And actually, Thunderbirds are part of indigenous American culture and are named because of their gigantic wings sounding like thunder and the ability to summon lightning with their eyes.
Okay.
And if you've ever seen a totem pole in North America, many have a Thunderbird at the top, and it's because it's seen as the most powerful of all spirits that can transform into a human by opening its head like a mask and taking off its feathers like a blanket.
Oh.
That's kind of terrifying.
It is a little bit. So a lot of indigenous cultures in North America have a Thunderbird in their lore, but they are all slightly different from behind them, their terms of mythology, right? So for example, in Algonquin culture, the Thunderbird controls the upper world and creates lightning bolts to control the underworld creatures, right?
Okay.
Kind of like what Hunt does in this too. The Menominee tribe tells of a floating mountain in the west that controls rain and hail, and that the Thunderbirds that reside there have prevented the great horned snakes from devouring humankind.
Thank you.
So I know what kind of nightmares I'm
appreciate
having
you.
tonight. There's your Ouroboros again, though.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that's true.
So there is a Ho-Chunk tradition that declares that the man who sees the Thunderbird while fasting will become the war chief of his tribe. And finally, the Navajo tribe, to them, the Thunderbird is a sacred symbol with many meanings. They believe the Thunderbird protects them, warns them of approaching danger, and nourishes their crops. Like all birds, the Navajo Thunderbird is also a spirit guide, and many Navajo believe the Thunderbird guides the souls of the dead through the underworld. So I didn't realize there are numerous pop culture references about Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
Mindy, this one's for you. And for those of you that haven't been to Holiday World in the States, there's a newer winged coaster called Thunderbird, and it looks terrifying. I'm never going on that. It looks so scary.
Amazing. It's so fun. We rode it back to back to back.
I'll wave at you from the ground.
My husband really likes it too, but you're literally your legs are hanging out. That's not for me.
Holiday World has the coolest theming though, because
they do.
When you go through
They
the
do,
line,
yeah.
it's like this whole story of this Thunderbird that comes in and crashes into this barn, and it's really cool.
So if you've not been to Holiday World, it's in Santa Claus, Indiana. It's actually really cool, and I would recommend it. It's the cleanest park I've ever been to be honest.
Fun fact: that is one of only, I think, 4 wing coasters in the world at one point. And 3 of them are in America, and Thunderbird's one of them.
Interesting. I didn't know that. So if you like Pokemon, the Pokemon Zapdos is based off the folklore from the First Nations of the Thunderbird. Oh. You also see a Thunderbird as a major character in the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which I'd completely forgotten about.
Oh.
I don't remember that at all.
It's like the little creature in the second movie.
Oh, I didn't see the second movie.
I think it's way better than the first.
Okay, I'll have to look.
And then in The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link video game, the next to last boss is a Thunderbird, which of course I did not know that's what that was. And then anyone listening with kids under the age of 18 have probably watched the French show named Miraculous. And one of the Miraculous is a Thunderbird.
Oh.
And then finally, way less interesting for any of us or our listeners, but a bunch of sports ball teams have Thunderbirds as part of their iconography or their team name.
I actually think
there's a hockey team, Mindy.
it's the AHL team for the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah.
The Springfield Thunderbirds.
Yeah. So it's like a lot of sports teams' names. I'm like, sports ball, sports, I don't know.
And you're like, done.
So that was like my big question. Like, what's a Thunderbird? Like, why is this so
Right.
significant? And I think for this book in particular, it's supposed to convey power and, you know, kind of being at the top of your game and all of that. So my other two questions were, who was the person the Oracle said would make Cormac? She says the one with the star in her heart. But we know it's not Bryce. So I wonder who the Oracle was talking about.
The Oracle actually didn't use the word mate.
Yeah.
Oh, what does she say?
I don't know.
It's something that they'll
Because I
They'll
played
marry?
Well, no, it's more like
It's
they'll
not
change the
even-
world, or
it's
they'll
not
do
even
great
marry.
things
It's,
together.
I'll have to look it up.
I think it's like union is what
Okay.
she said.
Well, they do kind of do that,
It's
don't they?
union or like bring together. It's
Yeah.
something like that. Because I read it
'Cause
like
she wants-
3 times to
well,
make sure.
She wants you to think that that's what it is.
Sure.
Obviously.
Well,
Yeah.
she got me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then maybe you know the answer to this too. Then the scar that Baxian has that Hunt gave him, how did he get that?
I think we find out in the next part.
I don't think we know yet. I can't remember.
I think Hunt alludes to it at some point to Bryce.
I mean, because you
don't
have to
remember
do
what
something pretty radical to, and you know, someone
Yeah.
like Hunt to get them to scar.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know.
So-
I didn't clock that at all, honestly.
Okay, but you understood the Cormac part, so you're up one on me. So, what are your questions, Whit?
I really only have a couple. One is, who is Command in Ophion? Because Cormac and everybody keeps talking about Command. Command sent me. Command knows.
It's the Wizard of Oz.
Exactly, right? I'm like, who is that? And
It's Aelin.
yeah, who is it? And, you know, what's up with that? And then my only other real question right now is, okay, so the 2 different princes of hell talk to Bryce, talk to Hunt, and then kind of talk to them collectively, right? Mm-hmm. But it seemed to me, and maybe I just didn't understand it accurately, but it seemed to me that their messages were kind of like opposite of each other. They're both, you know, you're not ready for the war that's coming. You need to like train your power and get ready. However, Adis tells Bryce that Hell's armies wait for her command. But Apollyon says that he wants her to be a worthy opponent for him, which I didn't. And again, maybe I didn't understand it correctly, but that's how I understood it to be. And I didn't understand why why do you need Bryce to be your opponent if Adis is talking about working together? It just seemed opposite to me, and I was confused by that. So
Yeah, I wonder if Adis and Apollyon have different end games then.
well,
Does Apollyon specifically say his opponent?
I think so. I didn't bring my book with me, so
I
I'll have
did-
to go back and look it up.
I didn't go there because I just thought he wanted her to be a worthy opponent.
I think it
whoever
said
she's fighting, but
I think it said his opponent.
Okay. Wow.
But I do know Apollyon
weird.
at one point, Hunt, when he has his weird dream with the prince of, not the prince of the pit, is Apollyon the prince of the pit? The Star Eater, whatever. He says, you know, your brother was just talking to us about this earlier, and Apollyon's like, yeah, I don't pay attention to him. So, so
like
maybe
all siblings, you're like, I don't care what he says.
right, and maybe it's just as simple as that. But I was just like, this is weird.
Yeah.
This is very opposite. I was confused by that. So those are my 2 questions.
Great question.
Maybe they'll get resolved. I don't remember. So we'll find out.
I have so many questions.
Share.
I want to know what Danica found out about Fury, that she they're
Yeah.
like. And
I wondered that too.
They're
what
tit
the
for
hell is
tat.
she? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd asked who is Danica's father, but I know we find that out in the next.
Can
section.
I ask real quick? I mean, Danica and everybody knows that Fury is an assassin, right? At
Yes.
this point?
So, yeah.
So that couldn't have been the big reveal then.
No, I think it has to do with literally what she
is,
because Hunt, somebody's POV in this first section talks about like, I don't even know what house she's in.
Well,
like
and
they
I
don't
think-
know what she is to know what house she's in.
I think it's that Danica bloodhounded her out. Like,
Right. She had said
that's what it is.
lineage.
Right.
And so So yeah, it's definitely like what she actually is.
Right.
Anyway, I thought that was very
I want to
strange.
know too.
And then I wrote this question down, and now I don't remember like why, but I guess they mentioned in the history about Thea that she had another daughter, but they like didn't say anything about her. And I'm like,
That was the conversation with Adis, I think.
yeah. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's going to come into play later. I
what's
just know
that
it.
about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's going to come into play in the third book because you're both like
Not saying anything.
not saying anything and like being like, oh, I wonder what that is about.
That's so interesting.
This is brand new information.
Well, and then I also had a question about, why Aetus, whatever, says that Hell's armies will strike at Bryce's command. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, what's going on there? Like, what?
What do you mean?
Yeah, are you putting her on? Like, I don't get that. That's like all of a sudden she's this. Yeah, I don't know.
That's
Yeah.
like something I'm looking forward to. Is I want to
Me
know
too.
how Bryce is going to use the aid that Adis is offering her.
Yeah.
Like, where's that going to come into play?
The other thing I was curious about is the River Queen. What is she gaining by tying Therion to her daughter? Like, just that she just has that control over him? It
Yes.
just seems like a
Yeah.
shitty thing
It's like
to do to your
vengeance.
daughter.
I think
Vengeance.
it's because it's what her daughter wants.
Okay.
Well, and he took her virginity and was like, I'll love you forever. And then he's like, well, see ya. And so, I mean, as a mother, I think I'd probably fuck with him too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the daughter wants to still like be with him. So
Must have
the
been some
mom's
good dick 10 years
the
ago.
mom is making him
Yeah.
stay. Although, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Just that whole
Whatever.
situation just seems really. And then she is a shitty person, so whatever.
I love him, but Therion's kind of dumb.
He is kinda.
He makes bad decisions.
He is
a little
kind of
bit
the
of a
dumb
meat-
jock of
He's like
the
a
group.
meathead.
Yeah.
And then I just have two more. I told you
I just have 25 more. you
No,
all.
no, it's okay.
So who is Apollyon's father, the Void? Like that whole encounter with Hunt is giving off Bryaxis vibes too.
Yeah.
Like speaking through the darkness and all that.
You know, actually, when I was reading it, I thought of the void the way that you described the first primordial giant or
true.
whatever. That's
Yeah.
kind of what
I can see that too.
that's how I took it. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of dumb, so that's probably
That is
wrong.
not true.
And then this is really more of a revelation, I guess, but that Cormac can winnow. Like he and Rune have to be definitely somehow
Right.
tied to Rune
And it's
to
not,
Rhysand.
I mean, currently, again, but we don't remember anything about this book, but it's not really like, no one's like surprised.
Yeah,
Yeah,
They're
he-
like, oh, okay,
It's-
that's just one of his
He
powers.
can teleport. Yay.
It's like shadow walking more than it is teleporting, it
Yeah.
seems. Like he shows up in shadows
Yeah.
as opposed to just like appearing, which I feel like
But he
is
also-
somehow cooler.
But he also describes it as like you're folding a page. So like
Yeah,
there's a
which
winnow.
yeah, that's true.
He's blonde, so he can't be a shadow daddy. Sorry.
no,
You have to have
He's
dark hair
trying
for
really
it.
hard though.
he's a wannabe shadow daddy.
Yeah, he's trying.
Well, Mindy, with all of your questions, what are you looking forward to?
I didn't write that down.
Oh.
I guess the answers to all
The
of my
answers.
questions.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to not having any more questions because they all get answered.
For me, because you had said, how is Bryce going to use that aid that Adis offers her? So that was one of mine, which I already said.
Yeah.
And then Bryce and Hunt need to put out. I'm tired of this.
I wrote sexy times.
I mean, SJM's edging us at this point.
Yeah,
I'm going to be honest. She's not even
Unapologetically.
edging me.
yeah.
I'm like sitting over there waiting for someone to leave the room so I can masturbate.
It reminds me of the episode from The Office where there's a lady, Jan, lying topless, but like you can't say anything. And it's one of the Andy's like, call me if she rolls over. That's what it makes me think of. But I wrote that more sexy times and also just a definitive answer about Sophie. Like, did she survive or
Yeah.
not? Right? I just want a definitive answer. Well, that is it for this episode. Next week, we will continue our discussion of Crescent City Book 2, House of Sky and Breath. We'll be discussing Part 2, The Abyss, chapters 25 through 47.
Also, my high school nickname. Bye.
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 like what you heard in this episode? Follow Our Nerdiest Thing on Instagram at instagram.com/Our Nerdiest Thing or Facebook at facebook.com/Our Nerdiest Thing. We love hearing from fellow nerds. Email us at ournerdiestthing@gmail.com.